This podcast is all about Alzheimer's and dementia, and we'll be finding out more from Greg Woods in just a couple of moments. But first, a word from our sponsors, including Ryan's Tire and Auto on First Avenue in Newton. Want to congratulate Ryan's. They received the Small Business Award for the Newton Chamber of Commerce, as voted on by members of the Chamber at their annual meeting last weekend. Congratulations to Ryan. Well deserved, I might add, because people love Ryan's. Once you go there, you'll find out about all their great service. And on their Facebook page, they say, thank you to all our dedicated customers and friends for your continued support, and it means the world to them. Prices you can afford, quality you can trust, and service you deserve from Ryan's Tire and Auto on First Avenue in Newton. Also by Wesley Life Park Center. If you have not heard it yet, go back and listen to the podcast that I had with Lisa Zylstra. They're in the middle of a fundraising effort at Park Center for improvements in their memory care department. She'll be speaking to the Newton Rotary Club, explaining about that, and they hope to raise all the funds by this coming March. And if you'd like more information, get a hold of Park Center at 641-791-5000. Also by the fine folks at Advantage Credit Union.
Are you feeling financially drained? Tired of high interest rates and endless debt? Fear not, your financial superhero has arrived. Advantage Credit Union is here to rescue you from financial distress. With our powerful loan refinancing options, you could lower your monthly payments, shorten your loan term, and free up cash for a brighter future. Unleash your financial superpower today. Call us at 641-792-5660 or apply online at acuiowa.org.
Subject to credit approval, terms and conditions may apply. See credit union for details. Federally insured by NCUA.
This podcast is with Greg Woods, who is the program coordinator for Alzheimer's disease and HHS for the state of Iowa. And I'm excited to talk to Greg. And in the interest of clarity, I am related to Greg through his aunt, the one I call Little Red. And I'm excited to talk to Greg because we've talked a little bit off and on about Alzheimer's and dementia, but I think it needs more attention. And speaking of which, if you are interested, you could help out Wesley Life Park Center with their efforts in fundraising to try to expand and improve their memory addition to Park Center. You can talk to Lisa Zylstra about that. I know that they're at least halfway through their fundraising efforts. They started last March and they hope to reach their goal by this March. We'll see if that happens or not, but it's a great cause, so you might consider giving money to it. But first of all, Greg, I want to ask, is there a cure for Alzheimer's and dementia?
At this point, the short answer is no. There are several things that we can do to try to mitigate risk and that we can try to prevent the disease for a certain period of time. And now there are new medications also that can slow the progression of Alzheimer's. But unfortunately, at this point, we don't have a cure, no.
Okay. And I guess I wanted to backtrack a little bit and know why you wanted to get involved in this. I know you have a personal interest in Alzheimer's and dementia.
Yeah, this is something that I've always been really interested in, the brain. And when I went to undergrad at Drake in Des Moines, I studied neuroscience and thought, hey, going to go into the medical route, go that direction. But while I was at Drake, I did a lot of studying for things like Fragile X syndrome, which has connections to like autism. We worked a lot on later on spinal cord injuries, so it was called syringomelia. I also did some projects on savants, autistic savants, which is a fascinating subject in and of itself, about the extent or the power of the human brain. And then eventually down the road, I went into some public health, did a bit of med school, really didn't like it, and then ended up switching to community and behavioral health. So at the heart of that is working with people, with communities, trying to make a difference on stuff at the grassroots level. And that really appealed to me. And then shortly after I graduated, position opened up in Fort Dodge for the Alzheimer's Association, and I jumped right in.
And by the way, if you want to see a story about savants, see the movie Rain Man.
Oh, yeah.
Because that kind of explains a little bit about what that's about. But Greg, I know also that you kind of had a personal family interest in Alzheimer's and dementia too. Tell us about that.
Well, I feel like I've had several different connections over time. In addition to some relatives who were affected by dementia, especially later on in life, have some family friends as well, some members of the community also who have had different types of dementia. So I feel like there's actually several different angles that I could take with that. And that's unfortunate in itself, but it really helps to drive what I'm doing and what I'm interested in doing, because you get to see it firsthand, and you know that one person's story is just that one person's story, but there's so many others that are going through very similar things, and it's difficult for all of them.
So a question is, how do you know the difference between forgetfulness, which I have and I worry about as I get older, and having Alzheimer's and dementia?
Generally, when we talk about the changes in our brain as we age, that tends to be more of just the occasional forgetfulness. I mean, people don't really stop and think that their brain is just as much a part of their body as their skin that's going to get some wrinkles or their hair that's going to get gray. You know, we just anticipate that that's part of aging, but the brain's going to age too, whether we want it to or not. So some of that does lead to a bit of forgetfulness, or it maybe takes a second to think about something and go, hold on, is it Wednesday? Is it Thursday? Okay, is it what day of the month is it? Hold on. That happens. Forgetting names totally happens. Forgetting where you set your car keys, that happens. When we talk about things that are different from normal aging, these are more concerning issues. So it would not be the occasional bit of forgetfulness, but it would be, not only did you forget where you set your keys, but maybe you don't recognize what your keys do when you see them. Or classic story is somebody who's had the same job day after day for 20, 30 years. They go in one day, they don't remember how to turn on their computer. They don't remember what that first step is that they've done every single day forever. Those are bigger things. Also, you can get some kind of general stuff like withdrawal or apathy or trouble with judgments. Those sorts of things can all give you a picture. None of it's diagnostic, which means if you have one or two of the things that I just named, it's not saying you have dementia. But if you do have those things, it's worth getting checked out, because some of those causes can be reversible if they're not dementia. And that would be great if you can get those fixed, whether it's through changes in nutrition, vitamins, maybe it's treating mental health, maybe it's an infection. Lots of things can cause trouble with cognition, trouble with thinking that aren't dementia as well.
Doing crossword puzzles and Sudoku and that kind of thing, can that help?
Very common question. And the way I always answer that is, if it's a challenge, then yes. When we talk about working out our brain, it's just like a muscle. If you go to the gym, you're not going to pick up the lightest barbell and just do it a couple times and call it good. You want to push that muscle out of its comfort zone. Same thing with the brain. So if you are an expert at crosswords, no trouble doing them at all, you're doing Sudoku on expert, and you can be watching TV and you can be doing other things at the same time, it's probably not pushing your brain in a way that's helpful. It's better than nothing, but I would say go for the things that challenge you, especially if there's an interest in those things. Try to learn something new. Try to work on something you've never done before. Push it out of its comfort zone. That's going to have benefit.
I remember asking you about Prevagen and some of those drugs, supplements, if you correctly call them, that are supposed to help you with your memory. And you gave me a very interesting answer for that. What do you think about those? Because I was buying Prevagen for a while, but it's so darn expensive, and I wanted to know whether it was worth my while.
Generally, with things that are considered supplements or herbals like that, the core of their claims legally don't have to be proven. So the way that they are set up within the FDA, within the federal government, they don't actually have to show that what they claim to do, they actually do. So most of the things that are out there, they talk about very carefully with how they describe the memory changes. They don't say they're going to cure Alzheimer's. They don't say they're going to reverse dementia. But what they will very carefully say is they will help you think, basically. And that really doesn't carry a lot of scientific heft to it. So when I look at how to assess Prevagen or some of these other drugs, I want to see, are there studies that have been done in peer-reviewed journals, that all of the things that they did are transparent and clear. Here are our methods, here are our results, and we just don't have that for a lot of these medications. Now, the placebo effect can be a very powerful thing. So for some people, that if they think they're getting a benefit from it, their body might be getting some benefit from it just from believing that it's doing something. But in most of these cases, those actual medications, it would be tough to know whether they are actually making a difference.
Greg, how does exercise fit into trying to prevent Alzheimer's or dementia?
Over the last 5 years especially, I would say, one of the changes that we've seen to risk factors is blood pressure has worked its way up toward the top of the list. Several really neat studies about this on why that is the case, but it keeps coming back that what is good for the heart is good for the brain. Blood pressure especially. So the better we can manage that, the lower a person's risk is going to be. But exercise in general, it has a lot of benefits. The brain needs oxygen, it needs nutrients, and it gets that by your heart pumping blood up to it. Obviously, the lungs take in the oxygen, transfer it to the blood. That's where it goes up to the brain. The things that we eat get transferred into the blood as well and go up to the brain too. So when the heart is working well, when you are exercising, that is benefiting the brain. And it doesn't have to be a marathon. It doesn't have to be a really hard workout necessarily, but anything is better than nothing. Just like we talked about keeping your brain active, this could be parking your car a little farther away and getting those extra steps in. Little things can really add up, but at the core of it, what's good for the heart is good for the brain.
And I hear commercials about, I don't know whether I'm saying it right, tinnitus or tinnitus, ringing in the ears. Now, over 40 years in radio, almost 50 years in radio, I have ringing in my ears all the time. Now, is it true that contributes to Alzheimer's and dementia?
One of the bigger risk factors that have also climbed up lately is hearing loss. So tinnitus kind of falls in that area, but when we talk about hearing loss for risking Alzheimer's, you think about people that have loss that is untreated. So maybe they cannot hear very well, and they have never gone out and gotten hearing aids or getting their hearing checked for anything like that. Basically what's happening there is that input to the brain has been silent for so long that the brain really doesn't need to keep those brain cells alive because it's not getting anything from them. So untreated hearing loss, what we found is it really increases a person's risk. Now the ringing in the ears, that's a little bit different. I haven't seen as strong a connection to tinnitus and Alzheimer's in the same way as untreated hearing loss.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, we talked about how important exercise is in nutrition and doing Sudoku and puzzles and things like that keep your brain healthy. It's kind of amazing to me. My sister, as you know, has Parkinson's disease, and it's slowly deterioration. But when I first got her back to Newton from Portland, Oregon, I took her to a neurologist, and some things she could remember, like math skills, and he would ask addition, subtraction, multiplication questions, and she got them just like that. The day of the week she didn't always have, and the president, whoever was president, she didn't always have. And it just affects so many different people in so many different ways. And so if you have another disease like a Parkinson's disease, that can affect your memory also, right?
It can, yes. So Parkinson's would fall under, some would call that a pseudo-dementia, because it is affecting a part of the brain's function. And just to be clear, because this is a very common question we get, when we talk about a dementia, we're talking about conditions that affect the brain. And then when we talk about Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, those are specific types that would fall under that umbrella. So I get that question a heck of a lot because we really haven't done a great job over the years of using those correctly. We just kind of use them interchangeably, but it's not totally correct. But when it comes to other things that are going on with a person, what we call comorbidities in public health, that has been shown to increase risk as well. So if people have chronic conditions, if they have things that are affecting them on top of their regular health, then that can definitely increase a person's risk for dementia too, if it's untreated.
Tell us about ongoing research in terms of Alzheimer's and dementia. Greg, any progress being made in that regard?
Well, I mentioned at the outset that we now have a few medications that are on the market. These are kind of game changers compared to where we have been. So for many of the last 10 years, most of the time that I've been in this field, we really haven't had any medications that treat the causes of brain changes to the disease. What we have are medications that treat the symptoms, but they don't slow down what's happening in the brain. These new medications do. So that's a big change. The idea behind these is in Alzheimer's, and this goes back to the beginning of when we first noticed the disease scientifically back in the early 1900s, There are two types of protein that tend to build up in Alzheimer's disease. And it's protein not like meat that we eat, but it's the type of protein that makes up our cells. You have amyloid and you have tau. And what happens over time is these build up to toxic levels, and then the brain cells begin to die off. The thing that the brain is made out of, is being lost. So these medications are saying, can we get our immune system to go, hang on, that shouldn't be here, and try to clear out that buildup before it gets too toxic. So these are called anti-amyloid medications. So the names of them, they often have an AB at the end of them for an antibody, which means you're trying to get your immune system to fight it off. So there's 3 that have come out now. One of them was really early on. It was kind of controversial when it was approved. It's not used very much. The other 2 that are known now as Leqembi and Kisunla, those are the 2 that are infusion medications. So you have to get them done. For one of them, it's once a month. For one of them, it's a couple times a month. But this is trying to get your immune system to fight off and clear those plaques. It doesn't completely reverse dementia, but what it does is it slows down the progress in people who are in the early stages. So when we talk about how important it is to get checked out early, that's also because this window for using the medications is only for people in the early stage. If you wait too long, that window is closed.
So how does someone listening who might be affected by this or have a friend or relative that might be affected by this know that they need to be tested, Greg?
The testing is always really difficult because here in Iowa, very rural places, not everybody is going to have access to what they think of as specialists to be able to do this. The good news is most primary care doctors can get you started in this journey. 2 ways really good to do this. One of them, you can just go in and talk about memory concerns. There have been a lot of studies that show that both doctors and patients think that it's really, really important to talk about those, but each one always thinks the other is going to bring it up first. We've seen that for years in studies, that they go, oh no, they're going to mention it to me if there's anything that comes up. And then it doesn't happen. So just go in and ask about it, either in yourself or in a loved one. The other way to go about it is every year people get a free annual Medicare wellness visit. For those who are on Medicare, it's basically a checkup. It's for preventive health. So it's not going to be all of the physical and the tests and everything else. But part of what that should include is a cognitive screening. And what they do for that is they basically test your short-term memory. And you talk about what is preserved in the disease versus not. Short-term is the first thing to go in Alzheimer's disease. So the stuff that happened recently, like minutes ago, hours ago. So they're going to test that. And it may seem a bit simplistic. It may seem like it's not that serious a test. But the data actually shows that people who pass or fail that test, it gives you a really good starting point for figuring out, is that person going through cognitive decline, which means brain not working quite as well. And if so, then they take the next steps to figure out why that could be.
So does someone talk to their primary care physician about getting that Medicare test?
You can, absolutely. And when it comes to the cognitive screening itself, doctors don't have to be the ones to do that. Commonly they are, but we're seeing more that nurses or PAs, they're also able to administer the mini-cog, which is the kind of preferred cognitive test. It's a short test. It's just a few minutes. So it is doable, and we're trying to work on training others to be able to do it, maybe in places where they may not have great access to a primary care doctor. But the point that I want to be clear is you don't have to start off with a specialist. Most primary care doctors should get the ball rolling. They may recommend going to a specialist after that down the road, because now there's tests that you can do that actually look at blood-based biomarkers. So similar to when you get your finger poked for somebody that has diabetes to tell what the blood sugar is, you're taking something from the body to tell you what's going on in the body. Same thing with these tests. Blood-based biomarkers can now look for those circulating proteins, and sometimes that can really help to confirm a possible Alzheimer's diagnosis, but that's normally down the road a little bit.
And let me say this too. I need to have one of those tests because I found out that my primary care doctor is not the one at our clinic in Newton, our hometown, that takes care of that. And so you need to have the doctor that is designated within your clinic take care of that. And I haven't done that yet, so bad on me. I need to get that taken care of, one of those things. I wanted to ask you too, and maybe it's just a speculation kind of thing, Greg, is when I talked to Lisa Zylstra about the fundraiser that they're having at Wesley Life Park Center to try to improve their memory care department, she said Jasper County was a little higher than average in terms of, memory loss, Parkinson's, dementia, that kind of thing. Why would that be?
There could be several different reasons for it. And we now have this data because within the last, I would say, year, maybe not even half a year, we now have county-level data for Alzheimer's here in Iowa. And we didn't used to have that. You could gather similar data from elsewhere, but this is the first time that you can look at incidence, prevalence, you can look at deaths, you can really try to get into these numbers. And you're right, Jasper County is a little higher than some. It's not the worst out there, but part of that comes down to population distribution. So being an older county, that can change your numbers. Part of it is social determinants of health. So what is your environment like? What is your access to preventive care? What is your ability to get out and exercise or things like that? A community that is not well set up, they can suffer more. Thankfully, Newton has some good opportunities for things like that. So it can be a real mix. And part of it also, we don't really know. Mm-hmm. In some cases, the numbers are really high, and it's not completely clear why that would be the case.
Okay, so the first step, what if somebody thinks they might have Alzheimer's or dementia or memory loss of some kind, is to either talk to their primary care physician or somebody who is the designated person for Medicare to do a test, correct?
That would be a good place to start, yeah. And also, if maybe you have this in your family and you're not experiencing it yet either, I want to say that you can go in and get those tests, and they can serve as a baseline for later. People often think, no, I'm only going to be tested if I'm showing symptoms or if something's going on. But if you go in years later and you've never had this test before, they don't know where you started. Have you declined? Have you stayed the same? Mm-hmm. So having that baseline can be equally as important. So just keep that in mind as well. But there's also things that people can do before they take that step to try to make themselves healthier too. So it's never too late or too early to start with lifestyle changes, trying to get out and exercise a little more, trying to eat a little healthier, the classic things that are always easier said than done. Mm-hmm. But we have found year after year, the research says that does help. Yeah. And when you do those things, you can either push back the onset potentially or lessen the severity of the disease. Both of those would be absolutely huge. But yes, any memory concerns at all, even if it's not happening yet, but it's in your family, doesn't hurt to go in and get it checked out and really advocate for, I want to know. I want to figure this out. Some doctors will stop at, you have dementia. But as you hopefully now know, that is just giving you a classification. You need to know what type, because there are different types. There's different treatments. Certain things affect you differently. Frontotemporal is very different than Alzheimer's. Vascular dementia is going to be different than Parkinson's. So it is important to find out what type and to really drill into it.
Well, great, Greg. I'm looking forward to speaking at our Newton Rotary Club on February 4th. And my first question I'm going to ask the Rotarians when I introduce you is, have you been affected in one way or another by Alzheimer's or dementia? And I expect at least 90% of the room will raise their hands. My grandmother Grout had it to the point where she sadly was, she died in her 90s. She lived a good long life, but maybe not such a good, because she had Alzheimer's or dementia. And we had to mark her clothes with her name because she was going into other residents' rooms in the nursing home because she thought they were stealing from her. Mm-hmm. And it can really affect people. And I see TV commercials about how it can affect your personality too. So that it's just such a diverse kind of problem to have to deal with. If people want more information, how can they find out about that?
There's several really good resources around the state right now. Obviously, we have the HHS website. You can search dementia on there, and that will get you a good list of what other partners are doing here around the state. Dementia Friendly Iowa, they have a dementia resource guide that is really good. The Alzheimer's Association, which is a nonprofit, they have a free 24/7 helpline that anybody can use, whether it's Alzheimer's or any other type of dementia or memory concerns. They can call them. They're over in Chicago is where they're based. They do really good work. And then they also have something online called the Community Resource Finder. So you can go to, I think it's alz.org/CRF. You put in your zip code, and it shows you what is closest to you in terms of different resources, whether it's AARP, Alzheimer's Association, in-home care, diagnostic clinics, whatever it is. it will show you by distance. Those are really good places to start. Your AAAs around the state too, so the area agencies on aging, they are very underutilized, but they are so good at what they do. There are 6 of them around the state, so each one specializes in counties. So we've got Aging Resources, but there's Northeast Iowa Area Agency on Aging, there's Pathways, there's all kinds of different ones. So check those out too.
Greg, thank you so much for talking with us today. This podcast has been about Alzheimer's and dementia with Greg Woods. We'll be wrapping this up here in just a moment, but before I do that, I want to remind you, of course, you can always find these podcasts on all the different platforms, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon Podcasts, and all the others, plus our website, outandaboutwithjamiegrout.com. And Greg and I will be doing a video shortcast in just a few minutes about this very, very important topic about Alzheimer's and dementia.
Dinner, Death, and Diamonds. Join Iowa Chef of the Year Aaron Holt from Doolittle Farm and the team at Alta House Event Center for an unforgettable dinner and murder mystery experience in Newton on Saturday, February 15th. This Valentine's Day, step into the world of Regency-era elegance and intrigue. The event includes an exquisite farm-to-table dinner from Chef Aaron Holt, a signature drink ticket and full bar available, delectable chocolates to savor, and diamond play, an opportunity to try your hand for a genuine diamond. You'll be swept up in a night where love, scandal, and murder collide. Join us on February 15th at the Death and Diamonds Murder Mystery Dinner Experience at Alta House Event Center in Newton. Act now, as tickets are limited and selling quickly for this one-of-a-kind event. More information is available at deathanddiamonds.com.
This podcast also sponsored by Tony Pesca, IRA Realty. If you're looking to buy or sell a home, get a hold of Tony Pesca at 641-417-8484. 641-417-8484. Little Red and I found our house through Tony Pesca after looking at several different houses, and she will find the right one for you. Also by the fine folks at Newton Clinic. It's not too late to get your flu shot. Head on in to Newton Clinic and get that taken care of. You can find out more about that at their website, newtonclinic.com. Schedule your appointment today and stay ahead of the sniffles at Newton Clinic. Also sponsored by Lynette Baker, Halo Branded Solutions, Free Classified Weekly, and Westside Java Coffee Company. Until next time, out is out. See ya.